Hello and welcome to the Divorce to Bliss podcast. Here you will learn all things related to healing from divorce, mind, body, and spirit, so you can create a beautiful new life filled with happiness. I'm Rachel Ruby, author of Divorce to Bliss, divorce coach, speaker, and attorney, and I'm so glad you found me here. Hello and welcome to the Divorce to Bliss podcast. I'm Rachel Ruby, and today we are going to be talking about following your dream to build a new life after divorce. And my guest today is Gregory Benedikt, and I'm super excited about having him on here. Gregory is a life coach and the host of the Dare to Dream podcast. Fabulous podcast, by the way. Gregory is on a mission to live a story worth telling, and he helps others to do the same. He is an ICF certified coach who specializes in helping people get the things that money can't buy. His coaching philosophy is centered around his belief that what we want most in life, happiness, meaning, fulfillment, purpose, and a sense of aliveness, can't be bought. Rather, they come from a byproduct of having the courage to pursue our biggest dreams and live a life true to ourselves. He's dedicated his life to helping people transform their lives through taking bold action and a process that he calls living a story worth telling. Thank you so much, Gregory, for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Rachel. You just took all of the things I was going to say about myself and you said it so beautifully. So thank you.
Oh, yes. So why don't we start by you telling us a little bit more about yourself and this work that you do in helping people live a life or a story worth telling. I love that.
So where I typically start with my story is back in 2020, the point at which I tell people my life got interesting. I always thought that my dream was to work in finance. I studied finance undergrad. I graduated. I wanted to work in private equity, and I found myself there. And after about 2.5 years of living the dream, working the dream job, I started to feel incredibly uninspired and unfulfilled. I was waking up feeling like my life had no purpose. I was living inside Microsoft Excel. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? How am I actually making the world a better place? And it struck me that I wasn't. So I decided to make a really hard left turn. I had no idea where I was going next, but in June of 2020, I quit my job in finance. I walked away and I ended up starting a nonprofit with a stranger I met on the internet. And this is a theme that I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot today, is that the universe rewards bold action. And if you're willing to get out of your comfort zone, step into the unknown and trust a little bit in whatever's going to happen next, that's really when the magic starts to happen. So I started this nonprofit with a stranger I met on the internet. We both don't know what we're doing. He had just graduated from school, and it was a leadership coaching based nonprofit. We paired professional leadership coaches with underserved high school students, and it was amazing. The impact coaching had in these students' lives, the impact coaching had in my life, made me realize that I'm here to be a coach. I'm here to ask people questions, to peel back the layers, to help them get all these things that money can't buy, like purpose, meaning, happiness, like you mentioned in the beginning. And after 18 months of the nonprofit, raising money, getting it off the ground, I pivoted and focused full-time on coaching. So I've been coaching full-time for the past 4 years. And I actually just hit a really cool milestone that I'll share with you, is that this past year, 2024, I am now making more money from following my dreams than I did working in finance.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. Yeah. And I love your story. And it just so resonates with so many people, I think, because, well, we'll get into that too, kind of the fear factor and all of that. But
oh yeah,
I love that is kind of that's the foundation of what you do. And it's wonderful. It just makes it so authentic, and it comes from love, right? So
it does.
Yeah. So let's kind of dive into the dreaming part, the building a dream. When someone is building a dream, and in this instance, let's talk about, I know you're not familiar with what it is to be divorced, but when you come out of a marriage, and especially like my marriage was 27 years, I was with my former spouse for 30, and you come out of this place, it can be really, really scary, and you want to build a dream, but sometimes don't know how, and we'll get into that as well. But when we actually start envisioning this and birthing this dream, what does it do for our energy and our spirit?
Oh my goodness, it does everything for energy and spirit. And I will say, like you mentioned, I am not married. I haven't been divorced, but I work with a lot of people who find me on the other side of divorce when they're putting their life back together, when they're looking at it in a different light than they ever have before, and they're creating that space for dreaming. So I am very familiar with that post-divorce space of creation. And what dreaming does for your energy is everything. That's why when I talk about the things that everyone wants, sure, people want money, people want happiness, people want fulfillment, but what we really want at the end of the day is we want aliveness. We want this energy. We want to get out of bed and actually want to exist and go about our day instead of just trudging through, being on autopilot, going through the motions. And so when you dare to dream and follow that dream, you get access to this energy that I don't think you can get any other way. You're just tapped into this flow of energy that is honestly a lot at times. Like I always tell people, you want to find what lights your soul on fire, because that's really what it feels like. It feels like if you're tapped into a dream that's meant for you, your soul is on fire and you can't wait to take the action, do the work, tell everyone you've ever met about this thing that you're passionate about. And there's a piece in that that's really important, and that especially if it's a new dream, you have to be careful who you tell the dream to, who you show it to in the beginning. And we can get into that, but that's how I would answer what dreaming does for you. It gives you everything that you've been looking for.
Yeah, no, let's talk a little bit about that, what you just mentioned.
So there's kind of two things that happen at the beginning. One is this, we'll call it naive, childlike excitement and optimism of, okay, I can do this. Or maybe, not maybe, definitely there's some self-doubt. There's all of the imposter syndrome that comes in. But when you have a new dream, a nascent dream, it's really important that you protect it from certain people and don't just go around sharing it with everyone. Because I like to share a personal story here. The first person I ever told that I wanted to become a life coach was my mom. And she's amazing. She's so supportive. She has my back now. But the first thing she said, because I was like 24 at the time, she's like, you can't be a life coach. You're too young. And so here I am, like holding out this dream that I've mustered up the courage to share, and it's crushed. And so I take that dream, I put it on the shelf, and I don't look at it again for over another year. And so you do want to be careful who you share your dreams with in the beginning. And I actually haven't put language to this yet, but like a no questioning, no poking holes policy when it comes to new dreams. If someone's telling me their dream, I always start with affirmation and support. We can get to the questions later, but especially in the beginning, you need someone to say, yeah, you can do that.
Yeah. So that story about your mom is really interesting and I think very typical, right? And it reminds me of something I saw that you posted last week about the rules, the bullshit rules. And I love this. I use this in my book. And for those who don't know what the rules are, they are those, supposed rules that we have been taught pretty much since we were babies, right? Culture, religion, family, society, whatever it may be, has taught us certain things. And when it comes to divorce, those things look like this. You grow up, you get a job, you get married, you buy a house with a picket fence, you have 2.5 kids, and you live happily ever after, right? And although some of that is changing now in this world because we see things like conscious uncoupling, and we see some different ways of splitting that are kind of more softer, gentler, right? Still, there's a lot of stigma surrounding divorce. And so a lot of times with my clients who come to me after divorce too, most of them, they have a lot of guilt and shame. And so when you go through that divorce, and you're even at the beginning or whether you're at the end and you want to heal and you have all this shame, it really is like it's paralyzing. And so those people who love you, who are your support network, there's a really fine line between what you say and what you don't say. And so my question to you in light of your daring to dream is, how do we hold on to those who support us and love us, that we don't want to let go of, and still remain the creator of our own masterpieces, our new lives?
couple of things come to mind to answer this question. It's such a good question because the people who love you most will often hold you back at the beginning because they want you to be you, who they've known for your entire life. They don't want you to change. They don't want you to take risk, especially if it's a parent or a loved one who's maybe assumed a parenting type role.
Right.
They are prioritizing your safety and security over your happiness, over your soul fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I've found super helpful is you have to give yourself permission. You have to fully buy into what you're doing. Going back to the example with my parents, when I told them I was quitting my job in finance and I had no idea what I was doing next, they weren't super excited about it. They had questions. They were like, what are you going to do? And it wasn't until I was like, I'm doing this. I don't need your permission. I'm financially independent. I'm going to be okay. Once I fully bought into the dream, they got on board thereafter. So that's one piece, is you have to convince yourself. You have to believe. And there will be self-doubt. There will be so much self-doubt. If it's anything like my journey has been, there will be self-doubt, imposter syndrome. You'll get in your own way all the time. But like deep down at the soul level, you have to say, I can do this. We'll figure it out. That's one piece. And then another piece that has found me this year that is so helpful is surround yourself with other people who have similar goals and dreams. If you are in an environment where other people are doing what you want to do or on the path or the journey with you, it's so helpful. I went to my first TEDx event in August because one of my friends was giving a TEDx talk. And I was like, amazing. That's so cool. I want to support her. And while I was there, I was like, I want to do this. I want to get on that stage. I think it's possible because if Stacy did it, why can't I? And I was just selected and I'm giving a TEDx talk in March. And like that only happened because I put myself in her world where she was giving a talk. I surrounded myself with other people. So finding people with similar goals and dreams, and it doesn't have to be super specific, like I want to do X or Y. You can surround yourself with people who resonate with a certain style of living, like daring to dream or taking bold action. I've built a whole community around bold action. It's literally called the Bold Action Community because it attracts a certain type of person who's willing to get out of their comfort zone to go after what they want most in life.
Yeah. So you just nailed it. Yes. And I agree. One of the things that holds us back the most is a fear of stepping out of that comfort zone. Tell us a bit about your 100 days of rejection, because I think that was really a great way to get out of that fear and that comfort problem.
I will share that. And before I do, I'll just speak real quickly to the comfort zone piece. There's two people that I really like how they think about this. One is an author, Michael Easter. He wrote a book called The Comfort Crisis. And he talks about how comfort is literally killing us. We live in this convenient, comfortable, temperature controlled world where we never have to do anything that's challenging if we don't want to. We can sit on the couch, click a button, pizza shows up. We can click another button and all our groceries come. And we were really designed as humans to struggle and to challenge ourselves, is probably a better way of saying it. That's why getting out of your comfort zone is scary, but it's why it feels so good when it happens. So he is definitely someone to look into if you want to learn more about how comfort is killing us. And then Jesse Itzler is an entrepreneur, ultramarathon runner. And he has this thing that I love in one of his keynotes where he says that opportunity, luck, your dreams, all of these things are outside of your comfort zone. And they definitely don't find you on a Sunday night when you're on the couch watching the Kardashians. So the reason to get uncomfortable is because everything you want in life is on the other side of fear. And if you're willing to step out, you might not find it right away, but it's out there. You're increasing your surface area of luck and all of the opportunities that will happen. And so I took that to heart. I also read a book called Rejection Proof, which is about this guy who goes on a 100-day rejection challenge. And I did what most people do when they read a book. I read it. I was super inspired. I was really fired up. And then I put it back on the shelf and didn't do anything. A year later, I read the book again and I felt so inspired. I was really fired up and I caught myself. I was like, okay, this is the moment where I either decide to put this book back on the shelf and go about my life, or I do something a little bit ridiculous and maybe things will change. So I embarked on my own 100 days of rejection, and I changed it slightly to be about taking bold action and talking to strangers, and specifically asking strangers for outrageous things, because I wanted to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I'm also a huge fan of human connection. So I wanted to see if I could just meet people, make new friends, see what happened. And we can get into some of the specifics that happened throughout this 100-day journey, but it has changed my life, and it's changed the way I think about everything, the way I think about making progress. And that sometimes if you don't know what to do next, you just need to do something bold. It doesn't even need to be the right thing. It just shakes things up. And that's where I talk about the universe rewards bold action. So it sees you getting out there, trying, and then all of a sudden something comes into your life.
Yeah. I absolutely love that whole concept. And, I talk to a lot of people who are kind of in that victim mode, after coming out of divorce and feel stuck. And I always say you need to start by taking baby steps. You need to do something. And, what's something you've always wanted to do, whether it be cooking, learning a language, traveling somewhere. There's so many things. I mean, what do you love? What lights your fire? What are you passionate about? And if there's nothing, then okay, what do you think would be fun to try? Right? Just something little. It can be signing up for a painting class in your community. And then they say, oh, well, I found one online. And I say, no, it has to be something with other people, because like you said, we all need that connection. And that is what helps us to heal, is whether or not those people are in the same place that we are, we have the connection that we are taking this class, or we are doing this thing, or we are traveling together, where we share that love for whatever it is we're doing. So it's necessary. And yes, we have become quite the automated human race, with all the things we can do at the touch of a button and a cell phone. And yeah.
And if I can just jump in there, that's what people crave so much right now. And it's only going to get worse and better, depending on how you're looking at it. The disconnection is only going to get worse. And the benefits of authentically and genuinely connecting with other humans is only going to get better as AI automates more things. And it's so fun. Like, the best part about coming together and finding people who have your shared interest, whether it's cooking, writing, unicycling, taking bold action, surfing, it doesn't matter the demographic or geographic location. Like, people come together for shared things, and it is so fun because you can connect with anyone. I've had so many conversations with people 30, 40, 50 years older than me, and we're both just geeking out about the universe rewarding bold action and going for our dreams, and sharing all these serendipitous and synchronous times in our lives where it seems like the moment we take bold action, something good happens. So it's just magical getting to be with other people who have a shared dream or goal or vision.
Yeah, I agree. I love your whole idea, and your TEDx talk is about taking the bold action, correct? And being rewarded.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will be telling the story of the 100 days of rejection. But the whole reason I went on that 100 days, in addition to reading that book, was I met my girlfriend through a non-orthodox way. And I was like, oh my gosh, did I just stumble across a secret of the universe? Like, let me test out this hypothesis. And
tell us a story.
Yeah. Okay. So I was at a cafe eating breakfast with a friend of mine, and I have never believed in love at first sight. I've never really felt anything when I met someone for the first time. When I made eye contact with this woman across the restaurant, I felt something. And I was like, whoa.
Just got the chills.
That was interesting. And she was across the restaurant. I just sat down to eat. It looks like they were finishing up. And I was like, oh man, okay, whatever. If she's still there by the time I finish eating, I will go talk to her. So they ended up staying there forever. I finished my breakfast. I asked the waiter for my receipt, and I flipped it over and I wrote my name and phone number on the back of it. Then I stood up from my table and I walked across the restaurant. My palms were sweating. My heart was pounding. I was like, what am I doing? There's people everywhere. And she was sitting at a table with another man and a woman. So the man was sitting across from her. I wasn't really getting boyfriend vibes, but I was still cognizant that I might get punched in the face here. And he was talking and I didn't want to be an asshole and just interrupt him. So I looked at him and I was like, hey man, so sorry. Can I interrupt for a moment? He was super confused, but he looked at me and he was like, yeah. And then that's when I turned to my now girlfriend and I said, hey, you're really cute, which means you probably have a boyfriend. But if you don't, here's my phone number. And I slid the receipt across the table. And as I did, she blurted out, I don't have a boyfriend. And I just cracked up. I just started laughing. I was like, fantastic. Have a good day. And I turned and I walked away.
Great story. Great story. It's beautiful.
And she ended up texting me. And in March, actually, like right around the time I'm going to be giving the TEDx and telling that story, it will be our 2-year anniversary. So the way I tell it and is going to go into the speech is 11 seconds of terrifyingly bold action of getting out of my comfort zone rewarded me with the best romantic relationship of my life.
Wow. Wow. That's just a wonderful story. And it proves that things will happen when you take bold action. Now, if someone else tries that, it may not work out the same, but you have to still keep doing it, right? You have to keep getting back on that horse and keep trying, because eventually something's gonna make a difference, right?
Right. And that worked. I was shocked. I was like, this isn't something I had done before. I had never gone up to anyone and said, here's my phone number, but I wanted to test it. I wanted to test the hypothesis. And backing up a tiny bit, the quote, fortune favors the bold. I've always loved it. I've always just loved how it sounds. I've always wanted to be more bold myself, because growing up, I was shy and timid. And so that happened. And I was like journaling one day and I was like, what if fortune favors the bold isn't just a cool quote, but a formula for how the universe works? So that happened. I met my girlfriend. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to test this. I need to do more of this bold action and see if it really works. Yeah. And that's when I read the rejection proof book. That's when I started doing the 100 days. And I wanted to see if I show up and do this day after day after day. Obviously, not everything I ask for, people are going to say yes. But will my life start to shift? Will I start to be rewarded for sweating through my shirt literally every single day because I'm so nervous? And the answer is yes. So
what are some of the things you started off with in the beginning? And then when it's kind of escalated and you, I don't know, I assume built more confidence, what are maybe some of the wildest things that you did other than the girlfriend story?
It was quite the story arc. So it started off, the first thing I did, I walked around my neighborhood and I knocked on a stranger's door and I asked if they wanted to go for a walk with me. And they were super confused. They said no. I was like, okay, great. That's fine. Like, I practically ran away because I was so nervous. And it got me excited / terrified of knocking on people's doors. That's like the scariest thing I can think of, especially in today's society. It's like you're on someone's property, you're knocking on their door, you have to wait for them to answer. And I always joke, the longest time in the world is the time between when you knock on a stranger's door and the time they answer it. So you knock on the door and you're just waiting there and it feels like years. So I did that for the first one. They said no. 2, 3, the second and the third asks weren't that crazy. The fourth one, it was day number 4, and I'll always remember this. I was sitting at home trying to think about what I was going to do. And I created this rule for myself that if I thought of something and it was so outrageous that I burst out laughing, that was what I would have to go do. And so I was sitting there and I was like, what if I knocked on someone's door and asked if I could jump in their swimming pool? Like, that was like a super normal request when you were 7 years old and you were just going to the neighbor's house. But as an adult, I was 28 at the time. As a 28-year-old man with a mustache, if I asked to jump in someone's pool, would they really let me? And so I go on Google Maps, I found a pool nearby, and I went and knocked on their door, and a guy answered. He answers the door. I put on my best smile and I go, hi, my name's Gregory, and I was wondering if I could jump in your swimming pool. And that was part of the rules I made for myself. I couldn't explain it away from the beginning. I had to just make the ask and see what they said, and then I could explain it. So he bursts into laughter and he says yes, which absolutely shocks me.
Oh, wow.
And then I tell him a little bit about it, and we end up filming a 10-second video of me cannonballing in his swimming pool. And I posted it on Instagram, And in 2 weeks, it got over 350,000 views. So day 4, I immediately get this feedback loop that 1, people are saying yes to things that I never thought they would have said yes to. But 2, this idea resonates. People were fired up about it on Instagram. And so I started messaging everyone who had liked it, being like, hey, what should I do next? I'm doing this for the next 96 days now. What should I do next? That piece that I mentioned of what should I do next becomes interesting because over the course of the 100 days, I did lots of things. I had a whole, can I drive this phase where I asked people if I could drive their car. I asked the mailman if I could drive the mail car. I asked Amazon delivery drivers, FedEx people. I asked if I could drive a steamroller, and I almost got a yes on that one, but then it was vetoed. But I started asking people for what I should do. And I started getting all of these really specific asks. And like 10 random strangers on the internet would tell me to do one thing. And it got me thinking, okay, there must be someone out there who does this professionally or who has done this before. And they're like telling me to do their greatest hits. So it turns out that's true. And I was on a phone call with a friend. And this is where I truly believe the universe rewards bold action. And things are going on behind the scenes that we have no idea about, because I was on the phone with a friend who I've actually never met before. He lives in Texas. He's a fellow coach. And I was telling him about what I was up to, all these challenges. And he goes, no way, that's super interesting. I just moved into a new house and my new roommate, his name is Brad. He does this professionally. Do you want to meet him? And I was like, yeah, I would love to meet him. Like, let me see what his YouTube is. And I go and look at it, and Brad has a huge YouTube channel called Discover Connection. And he's the best. He does this full time. He knocks on strangers' doors all over the world. He asks if he can cook them dinner in their home. He does outrageous things, like so many different things all over. So I get to meet Brad, who's this man who is not only unknowingly influencing my 100-day journey, but I got to meet him and connect with him and have a call with him. And he came to San Diego and we hung out because a friend who I was randomly talking to just moved in with him. So it's like all these little things start coming together. Because if I would have reached out to him as just someone trying to meet him, probably wouldn't have happened because he has a pretty big platform.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's an amazing story. I mean, it's all, yeah. So you learned to take bold action in order to, I guess, change yourself a little bit and maybe not be so shy and more, and also to form that connection with people, right?
Right.
So if somebody is listening to this podcast or watching and they are coming out of divorce right now and they want so badly to create, I know this is a very different scenario, but they want so badly to create this beautiful new life where they are happy and doing something they love, but they are so racked with negativity or fear or sadness or all of those things. What do you think, how can they get started in taking, I know we talked a little bit about baby steps, but in this situation where somebody's coming from a really dark place, is there a good way to just start taking those bold actions? And do you have to put a lot of thought into what it should be? Or do you just pick something and dive in?
I always tell people that bold action is super personal to you. So I created an acronym for BOLD, which is brave, outrageous, life-giving, and daring. But there's also another way to look at bold, which is benevolent, open-hearted, life-giving again, and deeply meaningful. So the action you take doesn't need to be something crazy out in the world talking to strangers. It could be making the phone call you've been putting off for years with a family member, or putting yourself out there to start dating again after divorce. It's not always going to be this sexy, Instagrammable moment, but it's you deciding to face your fear.
Yeah.
And what you were saying, I did start taking bold action to transform myself and my own life. But I also realized as a coach, I needed something that would work for everyone, regardless of if they were feeling stuck or not. Because it's really easy when we're feeling stuck, when we're feeling like a victim, nothing really works. I always wanted to find the magic phrase or the magic coaching exercise that would just snap people out of it and help them move forward. but that wasn't happening. And I realized that taking any sort of bold action, again, whether it's brave or whether it's just deeply meaningful, that helps you move forward in a direction. And like I said earlier, it doesn't even need to be the right direction. It just gets you into action, into momentum, and that's how you start moving forward. So to answer your question specifically, I would need to talk to each and every person who's listening and sit down with them and just come up with one small thing that they can do. And again, baby steps. It doesn't need to be as crazy as talking to strangers for 100 days.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly what I do with my clients too. We have to find that thing that just sounds like it would feel really good, or like you said, something maybe they've wanted to do for a long time, just calling up a family member they haven't spoken with in years, and everybody's different. So there are so many healing modalities. And when it comes to healing from divorce, that is true still. And but we're all different. So what you might need isn't the same as what I might need. And so I love that. A lot of times I think people need, or I think all the time pretty much, unless they're so self-assured and know this is what I have to do, most people need help in figuring it out. But like you said, also, if you don't have the money or you don't want to get the help right away, it doesn't matter if it's the right bold action. You can just do something, because it's going to affect the way you feel about yourself that you actually did it, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
It's going to affect the way you feel about yourself because you did it. Again, if you are consistently taking bold action, the universe gets involved and it starts to reward you with these magical occurrences. And one thing I wanted to add here is that scared and excited is a really good combination. If you're feeling scared and excited about something, that's probably a great bold action. If you're just feeling scared, probably not the right action. If you're just feeling excited, great. That's probably something fun for you to go do, but it might not be the boldness you're looking for. And so that combination I've found, and you know, as soon as you have an idea, like you feel it in your gut or in your heart, is this something that excites me and terrifies me at the same time?
Yeah. I think when it came to making my decision whether to leave my marriage, I felt that way in general. I felt scared and sad, but also I had this feeling of excitement about being able to continue growing in the direction I was growing and not being held back, so to speak, because my partner wasn't growing in that same direction. And not that you have to always grow in the same direction, but you need to be supported. And so for me, it was a really hard choice. And I spent a year, after I said I wanted a divorce, I agreed to spend a year going to therapy. So couples therapy, individual therapy. Plus I was doing my own healing for already about a year by that point. And that year, I gave it my all. And even though I was scared, my own personal decision was that in order to be the best version of me, I had to leave. And so I think that combination of the fear and the excitement was something that was present in general from the beginning. And then it got more narrowed down into, what are the steps I'm going to take? And I figured that all out on my own, but it was a lot of work. And I think most people, like I said, they need someone to help guide them through that so they don't slip back into that well and become a victim again. Especially when everything they've known for the past X amount of years is changing. And may I ask you a question? Sure.
Was there a specific moment in that year when you knew that you needed to make a change, or was it multiple moments compounding on each other?
That's a great question. So I'll go back before that year. So that was in January 2020 when I said that. But in November of 2019, I went to Thailand with my daughter on this bucket list, amazing trip. My daughter, like myself, is very spiritual, probably more so. She's a coach too. And I took her on this incredible trip. And the craziest thing was, for many, many months, I'd say maybe even a year, I can't remember, leading up to that trip, I was having severe pain in my right hip. So I'm driving to the airport. It's 11 o'clock at night. We had to drive to LAX, and I'm driving and I'm thinking, this is such a mistake. I never should have. Why am I doing this? This is wrong. This is bad. And then I get to Thailand, and I kid you not, I talked about this in my book. I literally, within moments of landing, I'm off the plane. There's no pain in my right hip. It's gone. And for 3 weeks, not one pain. And so I'm getting the chills. So this was an epiphany for me, because I realized that my pain wasn't just coming from my body. My pain was coming from my spirit, my mind, the place I was in. And I had been contemplating about the marriage for a long time. And so this trip it was such a beautifully spiritual trip as well. And the night before I was going to leave, my hip starts hurting again. I'm not kidding. And on the boat to the airport the next day, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to make it through this flight? And I started thinking about going back to my home, which was always my sanctuary, right? And I was terrified. Get back home, everything set back in. The hip was hurting. I was unhappy. So that, I think, was my moment. And that was November 2019. And so in January, I told my former husband that I wanted a divorce. And that's when we decided to take the year. So I think it was a series of moments, but that was the universe telling me, like, ding, this is, pay attention to this. And I couldn't. What if I didn't pay attention to that? What if I said, oh, that's weird. Maybe it's the warm weather. I've always had deep intuition, but I think I had lost it for a long time. And that was when I really started paying attention again.
I'm so glad I asked that question. This is crazy, but November of 2019 is when I had an awakening like that. That's literally when everything in my life changed. Wow.
That's amazing. So I had an incredible awakening too, but mine happened right before. So I bought a new home. I sold the family home. I bought a new home, and I moved in May of 2021. And my awakening happened, I think, right around that time. And it was just the most amazing, incredible experience I've ever had. Nothing bothered me. I was happy, like, to the point of being giddy. Like, some people must have thought I was on drugs or something. I was like, hi, my energy was my vibration was crazy. And what was really fascinating to me was to watch how some people responded or reacted to that. Yeah, it was a beautiful thing. So I'm so blessed that I got to experience that. And that led me to starting the blog and writing the book, and then to the coaching. And so it all kind of, like you said, I mean, when you start taking those steps, everything, the universe starts to give you the things that you need. And it's really an incredible journey.
And you listened. A lot of people don't listen. They say you either get the feather, the little tickle of the universe saying you need to change, you get the brick through the window, which is a little more obvious, or you get the semi truck where it just comes through and hits you and your whole life is turned upside down.
Yeah. Well, I didn't listen for a long time. I think there were years in which I was unhappy, which is funny because, like I said, I've always been a very intuitive person. And I think I just kind of turned that off and locked my inner child in the closet for a long time. And then when I went through that awakening and I let her out, that was when everything just started happening. So
that's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love hearing these stories. And you had a similar story, and you listened, and you left that, career path that was the safe career path. And your parents probably were so proud of you for doing that. And again, that's, you tossed those rules out the window, right? So congratulations. Look where it's gotten you now.
Yes.
So excited.
I'm at the point now where I'm just in shock. I'm so grateful and excited that I get to do things I love every day, that they're helping other people, that I'm making money from it. I'm making a living. And it I can't imagine going back to the old life of waking up every day and existing instead of thriving.
Yeah. Great. That's a great way to put it. Yep. Well, thank you. This has been wonderful. And I love your podcast. So I'm going to put all the links so people can connect with you at the end of this video. And if you're listening to the audio version, everything will be in the show notes, how you can reach out to Gregory and check out his website and his podcast and his social media. So thank you so much for being here and talking with me about dreaming. And I hope that those who are listening and watching picked up a little something that might inspire them to get out of that comfort zone so they can start their healing journey. Or for those who maybe are watching, listening, and haven't gone through divorce, something to inspire them in their lives moving forward.
Thanks so much for having me on the show, Rachel.
Yeah. Take care. Thank you.